Hi, my friends. Welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is Heather, and I am super excited that you're here. You are going to hear some tips and some tricks and some ideas to help you live your happiest and healthiest self. I call it Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, back to me, then you can take better care of others, and we can all make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way, and I am super happy that you're here. Hello, my friend. How are you? I hope you're having an excellent day. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast. This is the awesome human being edition where I get to learn something new and share something new with you and share the wisdom of another awesome human being who I've got to meet and get to know. So today we're talking something pretty awesome, and I'm not going to give it away, and we're talking to Lauren Fonvielle. Yes. Yes, I said it right. I've butchered so many people's names. Welcome, Lauren. I'm so glad that we could connect and that you could come on the podcast.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk today about EFT and tapping, if anybody knows what those things are. And we're going to talk about stress and, pain and anxiety and all those things. But first, Lauren, I'm always super curious. How did you get into this? I don't like to call it work. How did you get into this thing that you do?
Yeah. So in my previous life, I was in corporate marketing, and my family had moved, and I was, getting settled in this new house. And I was, a little anxious because I didn't really know any family or friends in the area. And then we got notified that my husband was going to have to deploy.
And, more anxious.
Yeah, and it was very unexpected. He was in the reserves, and it just kind of came out of left field. And my anxiety just really went through the roof. And so I went on this journey of self-discovery to find different practices to help me feel better. And along the way, I got certified as a yoga instructor, a reiki practitioner. I started practicing sound healing. And then I was introduced to EFT, and I really loved it, had a profound experience with it from the get-go, and then decided to go on to get certified so I could share it with other people.
And for people who don't know what EFT is.
Yes. EFT stands for the Emotional Freedom Technique, and it is this process of gently tapping on certain points of the body while simultaneously acknowledging the emotions that you're feeling. And the purpose of this is to get energy moving. So when I describe it to people, I'll often compare it to acupuncture, because people are, just more familiar with acupuncture. And so they would put little needles in at certain points. And instead of that, we're applying acupressure to some of these same points. And at the same time, talking out loud and saying how we feel. And the result of doing so can help you begin to create these new neural pathways in your brain, and you can begin to think about things differently. And when you think about things differently, you begin to feel differently. And when you feel differently, you take different action. And then when you take different action, you get different results. So whether you are somebody who is dealing with anxiety and stress, or if you are dealing with limiting beliefs, or insomnia, physical pain, this is a tool that can help in a wide variety of areas. And the best way to really get to know it is to practice it and see how it makes you feel in your body.
I can remember the first time because I was doing a yoga training or was it a meditation training? Anyway, we were talking about EFT, and someone was showing us, and not banging too hard. That's what I remember. Yeah. People were hammering on there. It's like, no, be gentle. And I mean, I guess it is, I do acupuncture, or I did acupuncture. So I guess you're just used to that, like be forceful to banish whatever this thing is. But I guess that's not the intention behind it.
No, definitely not. No, you definitely don't want to be tapping so hard on yourself that you're hurting yourself. You want to be very, very gentle. And if tapping on any of the points is bothersome for whatever reason, let's say maybe you're somebody who has really sensitive sinus area because you're dealing with allergies or something, you can skip over that point. So you never want to do anything that is uncomfortable for you or your body.
And and does it is it have you is it correlated with acupuncture points? I've never actually gone to see and look.
Yes, yes, it is.
And it goes in a specific sequence for.
Yeah, so we tap in what's called a round, and you are literally tapping in a circle, like around your body, and you're tapping on the end points of the meridians. The meridians are how the
Oh,
energy moves through the body, and it's getting that energy to start to move. It's also sending a message to the amygdala in the brain, and that's the part of the brain that controls fight or flight. And that can be activated when you are dealing with chronic anxiety and stress. And I give this example with my fist because I'm a visual learner. So for those of you that are watching this on the video, I'm taking my fist and putting my thumb inside my fingers, and the area of my knuckles here in the front, that's like the prefrontal cortex, the part of the brain that controls, where you make your good sound decisions. So when information comes up that brainstem, when you're not having anxiety and stress, or the amygdala is not firing, you're not in fight or flight, then you can make those good sound decisions. Now, when fight or flight is happening, that amygdala, it's like the alarm sensor starts to go off. And when that alarm sensor goes off, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. So it's like you flip your lid. And so when that information tries to get up there, it literally can't get up there. So it's like those times in your life where you're so overwhelmed, you're so stressed out, you may even say out loud, like, I can't even think straight. And the reason is because you can't. That information can't get to that area of the brain because that alarm's going off. So as we're tapping, what's happening is that a message is being sent to that amygdala, and it's saying, hello, amygdala, you don't need to be firing off. You're not actually needing to be in fight or flight right now. And so it's been shown to reduce the amount of cortisol pumping through the body because the amygdala is sending cortisol out. And then as you're tapping, slowly that prefrontal cortex can come back online. So now you can then make those good sound decisions again. So it's been shown to reduce that cortisol by up to 43%.
what?
That was shown in a study by Dr. Peta Stapleton. So it's a really big number, and it's a very simple tool. Once you know where the points are, you can simply tapping and breathing is going to help regulate the nervous system. And then adding on the additional layer of speaking out loud helps you to tune in even more, getting even more specific with how you're feeling. And, that saying of peeling back the layers of the onion to get to the root of why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. Because a lot of the time, what's at the surface level, right? If somebody says something that really sets you off, that triggers you, that's probably not the real reason why you're so upset right now. It's probably a lot of other things that you have shoved down and have not really acknowledged. And that was just the breaking point. That was the tipping point, right? Where everything comes splurging out. And so this is a tool that helps you to begin to recognize that and recognize those other things that you haven't allowed yourself to feel. Sometimes for years. Sometimes, we don't like feeling uncomfortable things. So
Right.
we
I
ignore.
just had I did the weirdest like mental flash. Did you ever watch The Simpsons?
Yes.
When Marge, she had been putting up and putting up and putting up, and then they were out of paper towel or something, and she just lost it.
Right.
She could use some tapping.
Right. And that's what happens, right? Like you get to a point and then something just even little can just, somebody cuts you off and it's like, ah, the monster comes out.
Right? And sometimes it's that slow accumulation, and you don't realize until you're upset. I mean, but I guess is this something that you practice every day?
So it can be used proactively. So you can do it on a regular basis as just part of your regular self-care routine. Maybe if you meditate every day, you add a few minutes of tapping before you meditate. Um, and it can also be used reactively. So in those situations where somebody used the last paper towel and you're
Right.
like going crazy, you can start tapping in the moment, and that's also going to help to calm you down. I mean, you will be more likely to implement it if it is something that you're doing on a regular basis, of course, but it can be used either way.
Well, and you'll remember
Hmm.
the sequence. Is it always the same sequence?
Yes, always the same sequence. Yeah.
And I'm interested about the, yeah, if you do it all the time, I mean, it'll be easier for it to remember the sequence because every time I go to do it, I haven't done it in like 9, 10 months. I go, okay, which one's next? And you go back and have to look at your charts. But so I'm curious, like the verbalization
Hmm.
out loud is better.
Yes, out loud is better. And the reason for that is really quite simple because, there's all those studies about how many thoughts we have in a day, right? And then how many of those same thoughts we think each and every day. And I don't remember what it was, but it's some really high
Crazy.
number of
It's
the same,
crazy.
yeah, the same thoughts that we're thinking over and over. And when those are thoughts that you're not speaking out loud, like when you're beating yourself up because you don't think you did something well enough, or who am I to think that I can do this, or I'm not good enough, when that voice can get nasty and loud inside your head, it can feel really true. But when you take the time to tap on the points and then verbalize that and say that out loud, something that feels really true you begin to create some distance from it. And sometimes we'll start tapping and we'll get a few points in with a client and they're like, oh, that is just so silly. That is this feels ridiculous right now. And it's like, right. So you begin to have these cognitive shifts, and part of that can simply be saying it out loud. So I
I
always
guess part of saying it out loud is because sometimes it's something that sounds really important in your head when you, even without tapping, you say it out loud. You're like, wow, that sounded way better before I said it out loud, right? But
right.
I guess because I can, like, although insomnia, how does it reset? I can't even imagine.
Yeah. So I think it's a byproduct of tapping in general is better sleep. But
Oh,
if you are somebody who is maybe has a difficulty falling asleep because you have so many thoughts, the monkey mind, you can't shut it down, you can't fall asleep. Tapping can help because it's this idea of saying those things out loud, all of those things that are running through your head that you are thinking about, all the presents you need to wrap, all the cards you need to write, all the places you need to go or things you need to do this weekend, and you, as you're tapping and saying these things out loud, it can um, it can begin to help. What I like to say, like, I think of it in a visual way, like of these thoughts in your brain kind of just like whizzing back and forth all over the place, right? And I think of it almost as tapping and acknowledging them, allowing yourself to feel however you feel about these things. It's almost like sweeping everything to the sides so that you're creating this space in your brain, and then you can relax a little bit more easily. It's not
right,
like
yeah.
you're letting it disappear, or they're going anywhere, but it's just creating a little bit more space.
Yeah, you're never going to lose those thoughts. They're going to be there.
Yeah.
Um, you
But
can pick them up in the morning.
right. And they might not, they could still be there, but they might not trigger that same intensity that thinking about this laundry list of things that you have to do. Maybe that begins to give you anxiety and your heart starts to race, right? But if you start tapping about, oh, that this list is giving me anxiety, I have so many things to do, and you're tapping on the points as you're saying these things, what happens is that anxiety level, that intensity around that thing that you're worried about begins to reduce, begins to go down. And so, yeah, you still have that thing to do, but you don't feel,
The emotional part of it.
the intensity of it as
Right.
heightened.
And is there a part of the tapping, like you're saying what you think is bugging you? Because I don't know if it's always what's bugging you. And do you find that sometimes it evolves into something else? Like I thought it was this person who cut me off in traffic, but actually it was,
Yeah, 100%, 100%,
right?
right? So, and the way that it works is that you focus on the intensity, so the negative thing, and you allow yourself to say how you feel. So if you're feeling angry that the person cut you off, and you can just say, I'm so angry they cut me off. I'm so angry they cut me off. And then as you're saying that, your mind is likely going to start to wander. And then maybe there's something else that comes to mind of something that somebody said to you. And maybe in your mind that doesn't feel like it's related to why you're angry, but it's coming up for a reason. And the reason is to explore it and to see where it goes. And sometimes, sometimes it makes sense, something that is related, and sometimes it's a memory of something that happened in the past, because a lot of the time this stuff goes back to past experiences that we haven't processed and are contributing
Right.
to how we're feeling now.
And I mean, sometimes we're not even aware that something's bugged us that much, right? It's, we've just, and I was talking to somebody not too long ago who, this would be so helpful for so many people. Oh my gosh. I'm talking to all these people right now who have all these things that they're like, somebody actually asked me, how do I let that go? I'm like, yeah, just like, how do you explain to someone to let something go? It's like, you can't say, well, you just do, because that's not helpful.
Right, right. And I think what's different about tapping is that, because you can have something that's really bothering you, and some schools of thought would say, okay, let's recognize this thing that's making me really angry, and then let's flip the switch and say this positive affirmation about how everything's joyful and great, right? And
And
then
your mind is going, whatever.
yeah, there's a real disconnect there, right? You can say the words, you can do the lip service, but if you aren't feeling that, there's that disconnect. And so tapping is like, no, we're going to talk about and feel the anger. Like, I'm really angry. I'm really angry that they said that. And as you allow yourself to feel it, you're going to be able to move through it instead of just stuffing it down and trying to ignore it. We really allow ourselves to feel it, and sometimes that can be challenging for people, because there could be fear associated with that. Well, I don't want to feel the anger, like that seems intense, or I don't want to feel all that sadness that I've been avoiding for so long, because I've had clients say, well, I feel like I'm not gonna be able to come back from that, like that.
Oh, right.
And you can tap on that, like, I have this fear that I'm not gonna be able to come back from that. So it's very gentle, and so you move at your own pace, and it really meets you. Tapping meets you where you are.
Do you find that people have to cycle through stuff, like if it's really intense, several
Yeah,
times, or
yeah.
like eons, or
I mean, sometimes things can take more time, right? So depending on the issue that you're having, if it's something that you've knowingly suppressed or been dealing with or carrying with you for years and years, it's probably going to take a little bit longer to release some of that, to move through those layers. But I do think that it's possible. And there's this analogy that one of my mentors shared with me that I think can be helpful, is that if you think of your presenting issue as the top of a table, and then the legs of the table are holding that tabletop up, right? And if we think of the presenting issue, so the emotion that you're dealing with, or the thought that you're having, as that tabletop, and then the legs are these different experiences that you've had that are contributing to this presenting issue. And so you don't necessarily have to tap on every single event in your life that has contributed to this. But if you start on one leg and you tap on enough of those events, then that leg is going to fall. And then you go to the next leg, and there's going to be more events, and you can tap on some more of those. And then that leg is going to fall. And you don't have to tap on everything, but if you tap on enough, eventually that tabletop is going to fall, and the presenting issue will go away.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
I like that analogy. It works for me. I can
Yeah.
see the table. And I'm thinking about, so we were talking about chronic pain. So I guess chronic pain, it's not like you can eliminate it, but I guess it's more because people in chronic pain get stuck in that kind of brain cycling. And I don't know how to describe it.
It's like an anxiety loop too, right? So even when there is a physical reason for the pain. So let's say, for example, you were in a car accident and now you have chronic back pain, right? So in your mind, that makes sense. I was in this accident, now I'm in this pain. But just like you were saying, you can get into this loop. Now there's anxiety about being in pain. So anxiety, like if I do this activity, am I going to be in pain? And that causes fear, which then causes anxiety, which then causes more pain, right? So like the anxiety and the fear can exacerbate the pain. And so there are, I mean, in almost all of the situations that I've worked with clients, there has been an emotional contributor to the physical pain.
Right.
And we can work on identifying what that is. And sometimes, sometimes there's resistance with letting pain go. And most people, if you were to ask them, like, are you ready for healing? I mean, most people will be like, yes, of course I'm ready for healing, right? But sometimes we need to think about, well, is there any benefit to being in the pain? And that can be a challenging question for people, because the automatic response is like, no, there's no benefit of this pain, right? But if you pause and really allow yourself to think about that, and I worked with a client a while ago who was dealing with a lot of physical pain, and she'd been in bed for a couple of days, and when I asked her, is there any sort of benefit? Can you think of any benefit of this pain? And she said, well, my kids are coming over a lot more.
Right.
Check on me. I was like, oh, okay. So then we use that as a line of tapping. Like, well, my kids are coming over more. My kids are coming over more, and they're checking on me because I have this pain. And then where does that lead to? What do you feel like? If you're not in pain, they're not going to come over, and so it can open doors for you to explore what's going on. And if you're willing to look at it and really examine how you're feeling emotionally and physically, you can get to a point where you can reduce some of the pain. And with her experience, that was what happened. She was able to reduce some of that pain.
Right.
And it's powerful. I had a session with someone who had never done tapping. She came to a workshop to learn more about it. She had fibromyalgia. She was in a lot of physical pain. She had said she'd been on the couch for 2 days because her knees were hurting her so bad.
Wow.
We started tapping about the pain in her knees, and you want to get as specific as you can with whether it's physical pain or emotional pain with the words that you use. And so she was describing the pain in her knees, and I wish I had that one recorded, because she was just like, what is happening? I feel like there's less pain. I don't know what's happening. Like, it was like, it was like real time. She's like, this is so weird, but my pain is less right now. Like, what is happening?
That's awesome.
Because she was so new to it, right? But just, sometimes just acknowledging that you're frustrated, that you've been on the couch for 2 days, not being able to move. And so we tapped on the frustration and the anger and how it was making her feel. And she was like, oh my gosh, I feel great. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. She's like, I'm going to go clean the dishes now. And I'm like, really? Like, that's probably not the first thing that I would do.
No, definitely not the first thing I would do.
Well, when I was thinking about it, it was like, well, she's been sitting on the couch probably watching the pile of dishes just pile up over the last 2 days, and it's clearly been bothering her, and she hasn't felt well enough to go over there and do it, So, but yeah, it's pretty amazing what can happen in the brain and how things can begin to shift, and then how that can make you feel differently and better physically and emotionally.
And I think, like, for some things, having someone support them in it has to be important.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. When you're in what I call it, like, feeling the feels, when you are in the midst of really feeling the emotion around whatever your situation may be, maybe it's the frustration around the physical pain, maybe it's the anxiety around this project that you have to do. It's like you're in the eye of a tornado, and everything is just whirling around you. And it's very hard to, see anything differently, because you're feeling it all so intensely. So having a practitioner to guide you through that practice is like having this other set of eyes, someone coming in with a new perspective to really see what is really most intense, and sometimes that's based on how the person's describing something. Sometimes it's based on their body language, and it's like, okay, well, let's start there. That seems to really be the intense point for you. And so having somebody to kind of pick things out and help you figure out what words to say can be really, really helpful. I mean, even as a practitioner myself, I work with a practitioner for that very reason.
Right. I
Because
mean, so I coach people, and I'm like, of course I'm going to work with a coach because I need someone outside me to ask me questions and
Mhm.
point out where I'm tripping over myself, which I can do. Um, I just had a thought, like, have you ever done it with kids? Because I was thinking, the last while, I've just seen more and more kids who are suffering so from anxiety for lots of various reasons, and I just think that would be so helpful for them.
Yes, yes. So I last spring I did do a small group with middle school aged kids, teaching them the technique, and they were just it was awesome working with these kids
Was
because
it?
they were just so open to it and willing to share their feelings. And
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I was really, really impressed. Um, and I've given some talks at the high school level, and I've worked with some teens. And I think, the more tools that we can introduce to our kids for different ways of how to deal with anxiety, the better. It's all about figuring out what's going to work best for you, what resonates most with you, and sharing this with your children is powerful. And it's something that I always, share with my clients. A lot of them are moms, and it's, this is something that you can share with your kids and can help walk them through too.
And I mean, recognize that because I was talking to somebody earlier about high school and how traumatic high school is. Imagine if everybody in high school was tapping.
Yeah, they could benefit. I mean, well, so Dr. Peta Stapleton, who I mentioned earlier, she's based out of Australia, and they are doing studies over there about tapping in schools and the impact that it's having not only on the children's anxiety and stress, but also how it's positively impacting their grades.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah, it was information that was just recently coming out, so it's pretty cool. Like there's a lot of amazing studies that are backing up this work and showing the positive benefits of it.
And now I'm trying to remember when you're saying your, and it's not an affirmation at all, when you're identifying your emotion,
Mhm.
is there a part where you say, but it's okay? Or am I
Yeah.
wrong?
So when the script that you could use is, even though I'm feeling
Right.
fill in the blank, I love and accept myself. Or some people struggle with saying I love and accept myself. So you can flex that statement and say, even though I'm feeling really anxious, it's okay and I'm okay. And so you say that type of sentence 3 times on the pinky side of the hand, and then you move through the points, just acknowledging the feeling. So I'm feeling really anxious. I'm feeling really anxious, and noticing what's coming up in the body. Maybe there's a particular area where you're feeling sensation in the body as you're saying the words, and then you can use words to describe however you're feeling. And it's just this organic unfolding of one thought to the next.
So it's not like casting a magic spell. You don't have to get the words perfect.
No, nope, there's no wrong way to do it.
There's no zombies going to come out if you say the wrong thing. I've watched too many movies.
That's awesome.
and and so do you teach online? Is that where your workshops are?
Yeah, so I do teach online. I also do in-person workshops, and I have a free group that I just started specifically for entrepreneurs and the limiting beliefs that they are having. But yeah, and I work right now. All of my clients are virtual.
Are they? It's I mean it's that kind of
Yeah.
life right now.
Hmm.
The entrepreneurs one is pretty cool
Yeah.
because I mean I coach. I do some business coaching, but I also coach coaches. And oh my gosh, entrepreneurs just trying to get going with something are are their own bottleneck quite often,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, we can get in our own way a
Yeah.
lot.
I get in my own way, like I totally own
Yeah.
it. So it's like, every now and then you check in with yourself, you're like, why am I doing that?
Mhm.
And if you had something to short circuit it. Now, do you have a YouTube channel? I'm trying to remember.
I do have a YouTube channel.
Whoa, we're going to include that in the show notes.
Yeah, and I put out a video about once a week, and
Wow.
yeah, and so there's lots of videos on there already about a variety of different topics, and it's a good way to learn where the points are and begin to explore it and see how it feels for you.
And when you do your, I'm curious because I mean, I know how it works one on one. When you do your group for entrepreneurs,
Mhm.
everybody's just doing their thing in the Zoom room, or?
No, so we do what's called borrowing benefits. So everyone comes together, and then I ask for a volunteer, and the volunteer shares whatever their issue may be. Last month, someone shared that they were having all of this anxiety around their launch and these thoughts of what if nobody shows up, and just fears that she was having around this
I know
launch.
that one.
Yep, there were quite a few people in the group that were like nodding their heads, like, "Yep, that's me." And so I use the volunteer's words to start tapping, and the volunteer, you know, it's like I say, it's like Simon Says. So I'll say a sentence and tap on a point, and then they say the same sentence and tap on the point, and everybody else tunes into their own issue. So if by chance it's the same issue as the person that's sharing, that's great. If not, that's okay too. So if, you know, somebody else is, let's say, having an issue or fear around public speaking, everybody takes their own issue and they give it a number on a scale of 1 to 10 of how intense it is for them, how much anxiety inducing it is for them. And then they put that aside, and then we give all of our attention to the volunteer. And the volunteer repeats after me, and I ask everybody else to mute themselves, but ask them to speak out loud as well. And we all use the volunteer's words and go through the whole practice. And then at the end of the session, I ask everybody else to tune back into whatever their original issue was, to notice if that feels any different for them. And then people share about, you know, anything that's come up and things that they've learned or noticed through the process.
That's cool.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like you benefit from somebody else's dialing down their stress.
Yeah. There's
Right.
something about like being in the group energy of it too, that I find to be powerful.
Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, it's been a while, obviously, but I teach meditation and I used to go to group meditations, and it's very different to meditate alone
Hmm.
versus in a group. And I don't know that I could explain it. It's just just a very different thing, right?
Yeah, yeah. The energy. There's just something about the energy there. That group energy, whether it's online or if it's in person, you can just feel it.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
And I know, extra bonus, you have a free masterclass too.
I do. Yes, I have a free masterclass which goes into more of the detail of the science behind tapping, why it works, how it works, and then there's also an experiential part of that where you get to experience the tapping and walk through the process.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like, you're so prolific with, like, I have videos, and that's awesome. And um, yeah, I just think it's so cool that you can actually not be at the mercy of being stressed or anxious or all of those things. I mean, you don't have to go to the doctor and get meds necessarily.
Hmm.
I mean, sometimes I know that it's the thing, but why wouldn't you try something this simple,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, and you know, it can be used in you know, side by side with all of these other modalities, and there's no negative side effects of it. And so, if it's something that you're even slightly curious about, give yourself the gift of exploring it and giving it a try and seeing how it feels, because that's how we learn, right? Trying new things
Right?
and seeing how it feels. I mean, I know that I was super skeptical in the beginning, but I was also in a
You were
place.
corporate.
Yeah, I mean, and I was just like, "What? I'm gonna tap on myself and feel better? Like that is some weird stuff, you know?" But I was also in a place where I was like, "Okay, I'm willing to try anything because my anxiety is killing me, you know? Like I'm
Right.
having panic attacks, and I can't live like this." And so, I mean, I'll have clients come to me that have, you know, seen or tried all sorts of different things, and then, you know, they've maybe seen a documentary that had something about tapping in it, or and then a friend randomly mentions it, and then they see something in a book or a magazine or whatever. And I always like to tell people, like, things start to pop up into your awareness for a reason. So if this is popping up into your awareness, just like little side note, it's happening for a reason.
Right?
And
Yeah.
it's yourself that gift of figuring out why and seeing if maybe it's the thing that's going to move the needle for you. Because if it is, that can be really powerful. I mean, it straight up changed my life.
Right.
So I'm passionate about sharing it with other people.
That's amazing. And yeah, we all get the benefit of you, jumping in with both feet and
Yeah,
changing your life. So thank you so much for that. That's awesome.
yeah.
My friends in podcast land, you're going to go and you're going to click all the links in the show notes to go and have at least go take the master class.
Yes.
Like, come on, at least go take the master class
It's
with
free,
Lauren.
so why not?
Yeah, it's free. Just give it an experiment. Even if you're not feeling crappy that day, just go check it out. But before we go, I always ask everyone, do you have any final words of wisdom?
Well, I would say all of the answers are within. We all know what it is that we need, but sometimes we need a little help accessing those answers. And this is a tool that can help you to do that.
That's perfect. Awesome. I'm always so impressed by people's wisdom. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate you coming and spending time with us and hanging out and letting us know all of this good stuff. I can just see so many applications for this. I'm an ideas doula. Ideas are just downloading constantly. So keep doing it because the world needs it.
Thank you.
Thank you. And friends in podcast land, take care of yourselves, my friends. If you're feeling a little stressed, try out the tapping. I'm serious. You'll love it. I will see you next week. Take care, my friends. See you soon. Hi, my friend. Thanks so much for listening to this entire podcast. If you found it useful and you're like me and you like helping others, please feel free to share this. Just give it a like, give it a comment. If you found something useful in it, there's a chance that someone else will find something useful as well. Also, if you have any questions at all, I can absolutely help and I would love to help. You can email me at heather@prosperityflowcoaching.com. If you want more of this awesome content, you can follow me on Instagram, Heather Stewart Coaching. You can follow me on Facebook, Prosperity Flow Coaching. And I have a personal request. I want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. And if you could give me a review, hopefully a good one, if you could share, if you could send this out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day. And I hope that you find your way to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend.